All right, and we are live for Hangops May 8th. I just sent out the link, so anyone that wants to come join us.
Like was continuation of service and I was still part of low. But now I'm not part of low and my visa's low.
How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad.
I'm no longer low. I feel like that my visa, I'm pretty sure
All right. So anything you want to talk about today related to fun stuff in the world?
Well, I've been playing with Cloud Router in some DigitalOcean droplets, trying to do some BGP routing in between instances just for fun.
So wait a second. So you can do BGP on an instance inside of DO?
Yeah, so inside of DigitalOcean, if you just maintain everything locally, you can do internal BGP. iBGP, not eBGP.
Okay, that makes sense. That is crazy, though. Yeah, I don't know. The whole networking thing is still a bit. I don't know what the word I would use is. It's a bit out of my normal ballpark of things that I understand well.
It's interesting projects, just something fun to play with. Cloudrouter.org has some interesting documents on how to get started on it, so just some fun side project.
Oh, very cool. How's it going, Justin?
Okay, it's going pretty good. And unmute.
Yeah, it's always a pain to find the button, especially if you're using like the actual application as opposed to on my laptop I use Shush, I think is the name of it, or Shush app, and it like just toggle the function key.
There's an actual application for Hangouts?
Well, no, well, so in the web app.
Oh, okay. Macs get all these like weird apps that I don't know about, so.
Yeah, and I still haven't like completely figured out my calendaring solution. I think I'm at the point now where I'm just going to leave my mail alone, all 1,400 unread messages, and like just continue down that path until I find something better. But like, yeah.
You didn't go to Mailbox or whatever, Inbox?
Well, like I always go back and forth, right? Like I'm currently trying failing at Inbox Zero, but like when I was in previous positions, like I always just kept all my mail in my inbox and just lived on search. And then we moved to Exchange, and I broke the Exchange server. So I now like don't do that, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily work all that well. So I don't know. My mail habits are horrible. I need to find better ones. But like the solutions that keep being presented are basically go use Mutt, and it's just like, but I like this device is like my primary device. So I don't know. Sysadmins get way too much email, I think.
Ever since I used to be a manager, I got in the habit of being pretty good at filtering email, and I heavily use labels for everything with filters. So I use search, but everything is labeled, and so it doesn't leave my inbox unless it's labeled. And currently I have 7 emails in my inbox, so everything else is labeled and archived, and I search based on labels. So
interesting. I'll have to look at that. Yeah, I wish there was a way to like default your subscription settings in GitHub to like let me know that there's a repo, but don't subscribe me to all the things on the repo unless I go explicitly ask for it.
So you have a problem of new repos being created and also getting all the information on pull requests and issues?
Exactly. So like I'm an owner on the Chef account and like the Ops Code cookbooks and the Chef cookbooks accounts plus a couple other ones, and it's like every time a new repo gets created, and you can probably guess we create repos pretty often, I get notified that happened, and I also get notifications about pull requests and issues that get created against those.
Yeah, I don't have that problem. I'm not an owner of any any repos but my own.
Yeah, it's nice to have that level of access and to be able to just get work done, but at the same time, it's like I just want a way to turn this off. Like, I don't want to disable notifications completely, and I want to know when new repos get created, because if they're interesting, I will subscribe. But the default subscribe, like they recently did a thing where they took a whole bunch of the repos that were related to Chef server and combined them into a single repo. So like it's interesting just to watch I'm not going to say the industry, but watch patterns. Like we seem to do this contract and expand with everything, where whether it be, and I would be interested, you've done a fair amount of Ansible, so it'd be interesting to know if Ansible does this, but like Puppet and Chef are both the same way, like where you go through this path of, oh, well, we're going to put all of our cookbooks together, and then we're going to separate them out into separate repos, and then we're going to put them all together, and you kind of bounce back and forth between what is the right thing to do.
Yeah, as soon as something gets large enough, you want to be able to maintain it in smaller increments.
Well, and then it's like it's the flip side of you almost want to, like, one of the things that we're seeing with delivery is you're seeing a move of the cookbook that's related to the application ending up in the same repo as the application, so that like the changes to the two are coupled, because like they really are, they're already super heavily coupled to begin with. So now it makes a lot of sense to just put all of that into the cookbook or put that cookbook in with the application, so that like when you're making changes, you can see in your Git history the changes to both, if that makes sense.
Are either of you using submodules for your individual cookbooks?
No. I'm not aware of anything at Chef that uses submodules.
Not specifically Chef, but we're using, most of our cookbooks are separated into, in our applications. The application Chef recipes are separated into individual submodules. You can individually take out submodule pointers, or if you're working on one big project and you want to separate a project, you can just update to your second project's submodule pointers.
That makes sense. I've been burned so badly by like the way submodules work that I just can't bring myself to go back to that world. And the nice thing, and it's an interesting difference between Puppet and Chef, right? Like with Chef, we tend to treat Well, we do. We treat the cookbooks as separate artifacts, and they're separately versioned. So that's how we manage like what cookbook you're pointing at any point in time is based on the version of the cookbook. Versus with Puppet, we always ran into the problem of you're just sitting inside that one big doc root, and like we ended up shipping the entire doc root at a time. And I think R10K starts to address some of these problems, but even there, maybe I just don't understand Git well enough, but like the way R10K, every time I've looked at it, works has scared me just because of all of the Git magic that's there.
Yeah, I mean, we're still using Chef versioning, even though we're using submodules. Like we're pinning, our pre-production and production by Chef version, and then our QA environments, for the most part, are just most up to date.
That makes sense. The way I've been doing it in delivery is effectively you push the cookbook up to the Chef server, and then you work through the different in acceptance, update the acceptance environment with the new version, and then run your Chef client run, and then in union, rehearsal, and delivered, you basically move those pinnings through the environment. But yeah, I had a random question, but I don't remember what it is. It'll come back to me. Justin, what are you playing with that's interesting? Because you always seem to have something neat and cool you're playing with.
I do play with a lot of things, don't I? Right now I'm actually focusing a bit on trying to use Docker for, I don't want to say nefarious purposes, but non-applications that people would typically use them for. So I've been wanting to get a good Docker container that has Metasploit in it for pen testing. There's a couple of them out there, but they're all either old or not really the Docker way of doing it, where they have, oh yeah, you need Postgres, so we put it all in one container, and this is, everything's in one container running. And I'm like, no, that's not how you do it. And a couple of them just actually run Kali Linux with full X, and you VNC into it. I'm like, no, this is not how you containerize this. So I've been wanting to build some of that, and then also just some other random stuff I've been trying to do with like Jack the Ripper, and then also stress testing, like more easily stress testing large scale systems, but inside of containers. Last week I was messing around with different config management engines or tools, and was partially stress testing my desktop to see how many containers it could run. 201. And then CPUs are just pegged. And then also I'm eventually going to try to scale it out a little more so that it will, I can get closer to 1,000, maybe a little more, so that I can actually load test servers, not just from like a load testing tool that like simulates load, but I actually want individual IPs and see how requests come back and time the client as well as the server to make sure that things are working out okay.
That makes sense. And I wish I knew where it was, but I know we open sourced it at some point. We did something similar, like we got a bunch of requests internally, like, can you handle 50,000 nodes against this one Chef server? So we've got like a harness somewhere that basically goes and spins AWS instances and then spins Docker containers inside of those AWS instances and then like points it at a Chef server.
And that's really what I want. I'll have to get that from you later, because I built that last week for Salt, is what I was starting with. And I wanted to see the load on the client and the server for the entire infrastructure when that happens, to kind of do a comparison, so that I can see, hey, is one better than the other if you look at your infrastructure as a whole, and not just, hey, does this server fall over?
Yeah, exactly. And it always gets to be an interesting question of like, what are you trying to do? And and it's funny because we before it was publicly released, like during the first demo of it, the first question was, well, are you running an empty run list, or are you running something that has like a non-trivial like, so in the Chef server world, like, where you see load get generated is in dependency solving on the server. So like if you used a complex cookbook that had like a fair amount of depth solving that had to happen, that ends up being significantly different than just running with an empty run list.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah, I mean, my initial thought was just doing the standard, hey, spin up WordPress on every container, and I mean that's not complex because really it's just Apache and a virtual host. But if I actually have Apache with tag a bunch of database servers, tag a bunch of Apache instances, that gives a minimal amount of load, and I can at least see, okay, does it handle 1,000 of those, and what's the load across the infrastructure?
exactly, and that's the that's the real interesting part of the whole process is figuring out, okay, how do we actually run this at scale? Although I'm kind of enjoying not having scale concerns for the stuff that I work on, like, and it's funny because I don't think I've ever really had scale concerns per se for most of the stuff that I've been working on, and it's kind of interesting. Like the scale discussion for me is, does it scale in terms of like humans being able to understand what this does? As a side note, I'm looking. I just glanced over at the repo. It's called EC-Metal, so chef/EC-Metal on GitHub. And if you click on the go to the loadtesting.md, it shows you how to spin up a large number of instances. So.
Well, that'll be very helpful because Chef was the only one that I really was like, I don't know. I've used the demo of Chef, like the getting started, and I've never done anything else past that. But all the other ones, I'm at least familiar enough to know how to set it up and get it started.
Makes sense. I figured out what I had a question about earlier, and now it's gone again. Maybe I should write those things down.
Has anybody tried out Vault yet? The new HashiCorp Vault, not Chef Vault.
I haven't yet.
I did their demo on the site, and I have approval to roll it out at work, but I haven't done anything with it outside of the hey, I want to check out a key on their demo because they have an interactive shell.
Yeah, the interactive is pretty cool, and I did it on their site also, and it seems awesome, but I don't know anybody who's rolled it out yet.
Yeah, I was a bit hesitant just because I was already looking into KeyWiz from Square, which does a lot of the same stuff. There are some differences, and actually the HashiCorp guys are always really quick on their issues on GitHub, and so I opened 2 issues. The day was announced for comparing it against KeyWiz and against now I can't remember what the other one was called. There was another key management system that I was also comparing a little bit, and they immediately were like, "Oh, here's a demo. Here's some of the key differences," and so it's in their documentation now. They have a whole page on like how Vault is different than a lot of different solutions. So, which was helpful. KeyWiz still could solve some of our problems, but Vault would solve all the problems with password management. So rather than using different tools for each thing, I'm going to keep looking into it.
That makes sense. And really, it's about finding what's the most comfortable for you, right? Like, at the end of the day, I wonder. I don't know. The whole secret management thing is just a pain in the butt.
Part of my reasoning, my liking for Vault is the fact that it could be backed by Consul, which was another. I've been wanting to have more of a reason to use Consul in more places, and so if it's needed for our secret management, then I can use it for other things as well, distributed. So
I love how that works, right? It's like I want to play with this thing, but I can't justify just going and playing with this thing. But I could do this other thing, which allows me to do the thing. Yeah, right there with you.
Well, and that's kind of my my containers for config management load testing was I really want to test Atomic from Red Hat. I want to put that through its own load testing and figure out a little bit more. I mean, I've used Kubernetes, for some sample stuff, but I actually want to use it in practice for something a little larger. And so at the same time of testing all these different config management engines, I also want to test out Atomic. So it kind of allows me to do multiple at once and, save some time.
That makes sense. And I remembered my question. So you're talking a little bit about security testing stuff like Metasploit and whatnot. Suggestions on, so what I want to do as part of my build pipeline is part of my functional tests, I want to run security tests against the app. Like there's the static analysis that you can do on like a Java or like a Rails app. Like so, I don't even know what you do in Java land, but I know in Rails land you use Brakeman. But like, what would you do? Because that security is like still not something I'm super familiar with. Like, what types of services or whatnot would you use to like pound the application to see if you've got things like cross-site script, obvious cross-site scripting and all that good stuff?
I don't know of any automated frameworks for Metasploit. I mean, I keep up with their news just to kind of see what new plugins they have, and as soon as they have a new plugin, make sure like, hey, is that something that might make sense that someone will use against me?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know of any way to actually automate that for, prior to the app being deployed. I mean, in test instances, I'm sure you could have something that would automate it. I mean, it's just you just get a shell and can kind of run through various plugins, but you'd have to have someone that manually, like per app, says, hey, try these plugins. But once you get to that point, a lot of the plugins are pretty well documented of what they're using, how they're using it, and then how to stop it. So it may not be. I'm more doing it for other people's applications to, to see internally, like, hey, I don't know if this team is doing all the security stuff that that should be necessary. So let's make sure that they at least pass a certain level of, do you have your Metasploit plugins covered, essentially. And so, I mean, if you had someone that at least was doing that much, you could probably automate, your basic cross-site SQL injection stuff through Metasploit, and then just have something that runs that on a build or whenever, once a month or something like that.
And my intention is absolutely to run it during the build process. So like you spin up your acceptance environment. Well, in our case, they tend to be static environments, but like you push a new build into acceptance, it would then kick off Metasploit and test that in application in acceptance.
Yeah, at this point, I wish I was better at Metasploit, and that's actually why I want to put it in a container, because jumping around computers, it's never. I mean, it requires Postgres. It requires a lot of times that you just say, hey, compile it all from source. And I was like, yeah, I wish it was all in a container that was already compiled from source, so that on my personal desktop, my personal laptop, my work desktop, like I don't want to keep compiling and making sure they're in sync instead of just updating the container and pulling it in. So that's kind of one of those reasons. But I actually found a bunch of tutorials that I had gone through on Udemy, which is just like an online video tutorial stuff that has they have a lot of Metasploit and other kind of pen testing basics. It's a for-pay school, so they're supposed to be a little more advanced, and some of them were pretty intro. But I mean, even YouTube had a lot of like, hey, how do you use such and such? There's I'd have to find it. There's also a YouTube channel called Metasploit Minute, which has a lot of good content for just like using specific plugins and how to, like, what some of the plugins mean, because there was a lot of stuff that I was like, I have no idea what this plugin does, when I would use it, and he did a pretty good job of explaining a lot of that stuff to say like, hey, this is if you're in this situation, use this plugin, and then you can kind of go from there to probably automate some of it.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. So I could, in concept, have a Metasploit instance running, and then like shell into it and fire off as part of like my build process. Run a command on that box to kick off a Metasploit run, and just if it returns 0, you passed.
Metasploit, from my experience, seems to be a lot of like you need to do a lot of hands-on and make sure you're. It's a kind of a feedback loop where you poke something and say, hey, was that result this or was it that, and go from there. You could do some pretty basic like Nmap scans, but that's not going to actually like get past the hey, what's on this port? Is anything exposed? I don't know of a good way to. I mean, if you're trying to scan for things that are unknown, it's just hard to automate that when you don't know what it is.
Have you ever looked at a product called Alien Vault?
No, I haven't.
So Alien Vault's pretty cool. I'm going to link it in Hangouts, but it has some pretty cool tools. It has a paid-for service that does a lot of intrusion detection, but they also have an open source small product that you can do that obviously will, like you said, do a little bit more than Nmap and try to do some intrusion and give you a report of some security flaws.
That's kind of cool. And like, so the way we do this, or the way I've done this in the past, is like you just had White Hat running, and there's one other company. I think Veracode does it, and I feel like there's another big vendor in that space that'll do it, like run regular web scans. But I want to do it per build. Like I pushed it. Qualys, yeah, Qualys is another one.
Yeah. There's scans and there's actual intrusion detection or intrusion attempts. Qualys will just sort of say like you might be vulnerable to this, but
well, and now that I think about it, there's what the heck is the name of the guys from Rugged DevOps? Wicket was working on it. Because now that now that it is like it finally clicked, like there's someone that's actually started to do the work on this, but I don't remember what it's called. Gauntlet. There we go.
Outlet.
Gauntlet.
Oh.
Let's see if I can find it because I don't know that I can spell Gauntlet. Because they spell it differently. I hate it when you can find like the video but can't find the actual project.
Going through their release slide deck. There it is. GitHub Wicket, WICKETT, and then /Gauntlet.
Nice.
Like it has to be somewhere in the slide share.
Cool. now that I've said that and like worked through this, it's amazing how often it's if I just keep talking about this, I'll eventually remember the thing that I've learned about already.
That repo doesn't look to be there. Let's see.
GitHub repo. Wow. 2012.
Oh. GAUNTLT. I'll link it in Hangouts.
I did.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna play with this because like this would be super useful, like to run all of our applications through.
Yeah, that looks.
Hit the point. So
there's another tool. It's one of the. I think it's one of the OWASP project.
Has anybody played the Security Onion?
I haven't, but I haven't had a need to. Like, I understand the purpose of it. I just like it's never been in a place that I needed to be doing that level of security stuff.
Yeah, a friend of mine runs a Security Onion Docker image that his children's VLAN goes through so that he can do.
Yeah, it's that's been an interesting discussion in the house, right? Like, okay, so when the kids get older, like, how are we going to monitor their network access? And are we going to monitor their network access? Like, how crazy are we going to be with it?
Well, in my opinion, when it comes to this, if my kids are spawns of me, they'll figure a way around anything I do anyway. So, it's probably not worth it.
Well, and like, a side of me wants to just like proxy all the DNS through one place, so then at least I know where they're going. And at that point, like I've got all the important stuff. And if they want to like break around, they want to get around that, then, or if they can get around that, like kind of over it, like, because at that point it means that they've managed to break into the router and, prevent, because what you would have to do, right, is like prevent outbound requests to DNS servers.
Yeah, you'd have to reroute all of your, port 53 to OpenDNS or something like that. Because I think OpenDNS will give you a report. I think you can sign it up to like get a monthly report or weekly report or something like that to see what sites most visited or something like that. So then you don't need to do all of the stat gathering yourself and look through logs.
Exactly. Yeah. But like my daughter's 5 at this point, so like I'm not super worried about that. But yeah, that might be useful at some point to just see where they're going.
I'd like to see your 5-year-old exploit your network.
That would be awesome. But at this point, she just uses the iPad, and I keep debating whether I want to just get her a Chromebook or whether she needs an actual computer.
Start over the Palm 2.
Did you say Palm 2? That's awesome.
No, I think he said Ubuntu, and like, I don't know, like, I that feels so weird, right? Because like when they get to the school, what are they going to be using? Because there's nothing that drives me more insane than, and it's the same at the schools, right? Like, you're blocking Google Docs, like that kind of is counterproductive because that's kind of an important skill to have.
So coming from education IT, the problem is that Google was offering free apps for schools, but then they were basically using the information gathered on kids to try to then give them advertisements once they hit a certain age. And before they're 13, you're not allowed to gather any kind of data on them. So it's a fight right now with Google and schools.
Well, and see, I think that 90%, I get that, but like I think Google has the legal wherewithal to not be doing that, to not do what's inappropriate. What I think is a bigger issue for me is like the number of times of, oh, well, we can't control it, so therefore we aren't going to do it. Like school IT and like, yeah. This is a very long rant about watching school IT and their frequent... I'm just going to stop talking now because I have nothing nice to say, and it's going to result in me saying things I shouldn't say in a recorded podcast. So I'm just going to stop. How about them Dodgers? Oh. But yeah, thank you though for the info on the security stuff, because I think that's the next big step for me as I move through kind of my delivery journey, if you will, and as I become more application focused as opposed to operations focused. Like, I don't know how I got into a place where like writing applications is a thing for me now, but I managed to do that. So as I move forward with those tasks, it's definitely something that's on my mind.
Can I throw a question out to the group?
Go for it.
Can someone give me a quick elevator pitch of Terraform?
Sure.
You know what CloudFormation is?
I come from the OpenStack world, so I've kind of associated CloudFormation to something like Heat. Would that be accurate?
Well, yeah, it's just a way to outline your infrastructure, and Terraform kind of does that in a vendor agnostic sort of way, so that you can do it anywhere. 'Cause it's just a more generic way to kind of outline your infrastructure.
Terraform, though, will also allow you to plan out and propose changes to your infrastructure, whereas CloudFormation is just a big sort of mess of JSON.
Yeah.
It's tooling around infrastructure as a service. So things that aren't really, the feature set's not like a parity. So you can do things in CloudFormation that you can't do in Terraform.
Yeah, that was one of the rubs I was kind of trying to figure out. It looks like they're trying to attack the same space, just kind of different ways.
Yeah, it's kind of like RateScale and Stratius or whatever Dell's renamed it to. It's just sort of like I have like a pile of things, and I wish to make them go in some sort of way that looks like this, and go.
In my opinion, the best part about Terraform is if you have a heterogeneous environment, if you have, AWS and OpenStack and Droplets, you can use Terraform in all of them, as opposed to CloudFormation, which is obviously AWS specific.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense then. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
I haven't used either of them much, but like the other thing that I've heard very frequently is Terraform isn't a JSON blob, so like it doesn't make your eyes bleed quite as much. Like, love me some JSON, but yeah, building my infrastructure is JSON, kind of painful.
If anybody has the recording last week or the week before, there was actually someone from Terraform on here with some of the guys from Mozilla talking about how exactly they use Terraform in their environment. It was a good talk.
Nice. Does that answer your question, JJ?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Come back.
Paul, when's DevOps Days Austin last week, or was it the week before?
Yeah, it was this week just gone. So it was Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, awesome. How was it? Like, I saw the Twitter sphere as it being awesome, but like, since you're one of the organizers, if I remember correctly, how did it go?
Yeah, it went really well. We had, between attendees and sponsors and speakers and everything, we had close to 500 people. It was in like the 490s. And so we actually, last year and this year, we actually had 2 tracks. Your standard sort of, hardcore culture DevOps track, and then also a separate tools track, which kind of got a little bit more toolsy, which I appreciate being able to pick and choose between the two. Although, as somebody said, if you think you should be at the tools track, you should actually be at the culture track. But it was good because you got to see like some demos, and you got to see some people actually doing interesting things. JJ gave a pretty good talk about how to Chef DK, and why we should all stop doing gem install chef.
Exactly. Thank you.
But
I was looking at someone's config yesterday and was like, wait, you're provisioning using the chef gem. I'm sorry. Well, that's awesome to hear. Were there breakfast tacos? Because I hear that's what the whole reason to go to Austin.
Yeah, there was. So we had breakfast tacos one morning. We had barbecue for lunch one day from a place out at Taylor that's pretty famous for their barbecue. And then we had a bunch of comfort food for lunch the next day. We had like chicken pot pie and fried macaroni and cheese and all that kind of stuff. Bacon wrapped meatloaf.
Whoa, bacon wrapped meatloaf. That just sounds fantastic. What I need to do is, once we're done with this, send a copy of this recording over to Nathan. His chef conf is going to be in Austin next year. And be like, that's totally what we need, is bacon wrapped meatloaf and breakfast tacos.
I am happy to take on an advisory role in getting food organized. I know all the companies in Austin.
And of course,
I trust Paul explicitly with that.
There was something I was going to ask around. Okay, I have to. That's the other thing. Was there Tito's? Because like that's the other thing I know of Austin for is Tito's vodka.
There was Tito's at the happy hour and at the bar, so that did happen. We also had a couple of local whiskies. One of them was Swift, which is a brand new whiskey that is kind of distillery that just opened up that we gave out as speakers gifts.
That's way cool. I feel like I need to go to Austin now.
Yes, yes, you do.
Yeah.
You should come out in May next year.
Right? In fact, that's how I keep telling my wife. I'm like, so you're. She's like, okay, wait a second, you're going to Austin? I'm like, yeah, you should come join me for Chef Conf, and then we'll go tour the Tito's distillery. So fun stuff.
Before we leave the topic of food, I found out something yesterday that I was super excited about, and probably only applies to you and me, Chris. I don't know if anyone else is in California, but In-N-Out, you can get your cheeseburger monkey style. You ever heard of this? Yeah.
No.
Seriously. It is a cheeseburger with animal fries on the burger. And if you don't know what animal fries are, I mean, it's fries with cheese and sauce and grilled onions on the fries, and you can just get it all on the burger. And Jack in the Box actually does a sourdough jack monkey style, which is just a sourdough jack with fries and cheese and grilled onions in it.
I feel like there went like a day's worth of caloric intake in one burger, but I'm gonna have to go try that. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, the site I saw it on, they said they had to go to 2 different In-N-Outs before they actually found one that knew what it was. But they had pictures of their monkey style burgers, and it wasn't on April 1st. Whereas there was a April 1st posting of bacon and avocado In-N-Out.
Yeah, I
was
wouldn't.
super excited, and then I found out it was April 1st, and I was really mad.
Yeah, In-N-Out adding additional things just sounds weird. Like I can't imagine that you would show up at an In-N-Out and there'd be bacon. That'd be like the first new ingredient in almost in 50 years. Wow. I'm now sad that I'm going to Mexican food for lunch.
Yeah, I'm going to In-N-Out tomorrow. So once the rain stops here, I'm going over to In-N-Out, and then even Jack in the Box, their animal sourdough jack looked pretty good, but they also have a Western taco, which I didn't know about, which is just onion rings with barbecue sauce on a taco, and even that looked pretty good.
On the taco?
Yeah, it was just a taco, and they add onion rings with barbecue sauce, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a try someday.
That is crazy. Okay, so we've got we'll call about 10 more minutes left. Were there any other crazy things that we wanted to talk about as far as interesting technology, upcoming conferences? I think, what is that? Oh, talk about keyboards. As a side note, I think the CFP for PuppetConf is closing soon. So if you are inclined in the Puppet ways, you should probably get your, what is it called? Get your proposal in, and there are a few DevOps days that have CFPs closing fairly soon here, so you should totally do that. And I think DevOps Days Chicago just opened. And JJ, was that a Kinesis?
Yes, I got it yesterday.
Do your fingers still work?
Muscle memory sucks.
I intentionally I used to use a Type 6 Sun keyboard, a Unix style Unix layout Type 6. So for those that don't know, Sun made a Unix style keyboard that put the backspace and the control keys where God intended them, and that is a quote directly from Brian Kintrell. And my problem is that I switch between the laptop and that keyboard so much. I finally just said screw it, and I have the standard keyboard as my keyboard because my fingers don't break when I go between keyboards now.
Yeah, I've gone deep neckbeard here. I use Dvorak, Emacs, and a Kinesis now. I don't think I have any farther to go.
I use a Kinesis and Dvorak, but I'm all with Vim. So I actually just learned today that Steve Wozniak uses Dvorak, and the world record of typing was on Dvorak. So just saying, guys.
Yeah.
I feel like I should totally. Well, so I wonder if I can move my keys around, like, because the only way for me to do Dvorak, like to actually learn how to use Dvorak, would be to like actually like pry the keycaps off and put them in the right places, because I'd have to like be able to look at the keys.
Yeah, I used to do that, and there were very limited set of keyboards that all the keys are actually replaceable and swappable, because a lot of times your home row keys, the keys with the, especially the keys with the bump, the J, what are they for you guys? J and F. Those keys usually are underneath different caps. A lot of the mechanical keyboards now are universal, but older keyboards, I had specific HP keyboards that I had a stack of, that those would allow me to move the keys around so that I would replace them so other people could use my computer. And now I don't replace them and just make sure no one ever uses my computer.
Security for obscurity.
Yeah, I don't know that I could. Yeah, that's the other problem, right? Is like switching to a Dvorak keyboard layout, like switching to like my wife's computer, because I'm horrible at muscle memory. In fact, it's actually a running joke in my house, because I get frustrated because her caps lock key doesn't have the control key where it should be. And like, I get so frustrated on her keyboard, because it's like, why is this isn't working the way it's supposed to?
I actually started remapping my cap locks to escape because of Vim, and found out that that doesn't translate in a lot of consoles. Like Java consoles still think that that's cap locks, even though my keyboard escapes. And so it just gets to a weird point that I can't get out of it. If I go into Vim inside of a Java console, I can't get out of it. Like I'm all of a sudden typing all cap locks, and I cannot stop typing cap locks, and then I cannot escape out of input mode. It's very terrible.
What OS are you using?
What's that?
What OS are you using?
Either Fedora or Red Hat.
It's kind of strange that Xmod remap wouldn't, because you can actually change the key codes that are being interpreted and then forwarded to the app, no?
Yeah, and I don't know where the Java application tries to steal that focus, because I set it at the X level, where X is, okay, anytime I'm typing cap locks, that is actually escape. But for some reason inside of Java, it escapes out of the browser window for a second, but then cap locks get set inside the Java browser. And so I have to do like these inside the menu, map all these keys to allow me to like get in and out of Vim and send keys that aren't mapped the right way that Java thinks they are.
Well, you said you used the Kinesis, right? Can't you just map it on the keyboard instead?
I use the Freestyle Kinesis, not the other. So I have a weird medical thing with my wrist that I cannot bend it all the way down. So I tried that Kinesis for a little while, and it didn't help me at all. And so I used the Freestyle with a full like 90-degree split, and that one doesn't have the hardware remapping.
So what you're saying is you really need one of those. You need to like go full, like build your own keyboard. I forget the name of those.
Oh no, I've already I already have plans for that.
As a side note, that's actually one of the things that I used to love about the Sun keyboards is instead of the escape key being way out into the corner, it pulls it in where your tilde normally is. Because like escape is a useful key, not something that should be relegated out to the edge of the keyboard. Well, cool stuff. Anyone got anything else for the better of the group?
Anyone gonna be at DockerCon next month?
Very nice.
I wish I was going to that, but unfortunately I've got too much other stuff going on, so I had to drop it. But I'm going up to Vancouver for OpenStack. I think JJ probably is as well.
Yay!
Yes, sir, I am.
And that's like, what, the 17th through 22nd or something like that.
Yeah, it's not next week, it's the week after.
Right.
Matt behind me is going to be there also. Wave, Matt. There it goes.
I live in Vancouver, but I'm not going.
Yeah, I would love to go to the OpenStack conference. My conference this year is going to be SharkFest in mid-June.
SharkFest? What's SharkFest?
the Wireshark conference.
Interesting. I didn't know they had a conference.
I didn't know until this year, but it looks pretty cool.
That's some craziness. A conference all about sniffing packets. That came out totally wrong. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a day. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.